Now, on a regular basis, I get asked that wonderful question, do you actually get to use your degree? And I say absolutely. Just because I'm not sitting in an office doing private practice doesn't mean I'm not utilizing the information that I gained during my graduate and undergraduate studies. Not sure if you're aware of this or not, but college is kind of a tumultuous time for a lot of people. There's so much learning that's occurring, not just in the classroom, but about yourself, interpersonal relationships, and about cause and effect behavior, which sometimes involves consequences. So whether I'm sitting with student leaders and mentoring them, or I'm sitting with students in crisis, I sometimes have the opportunity to be a part of an important conversation about identity with them. Now, we all know that identity is complex, that you're not just one thing. However, our culture perpetuates certain false dichotomies about identity that ultimately hinder us. We have created an either-or where there should be a both-and. For example, my husband is a jack of all trades. He does lots of stereotypical manly things, like carry heavy stuff or can change the battery in our car, which is great. He also does lots of stereotypical nerdy things, like read about physics for fun or can 3D print and program a robotic hand, for example. He also loves the movie Mean Girls and knows more words to the Les Mis soundtrack than I do. Now, does anything I mentioned in the second or third category make him any less of a man? No, of course not. He doesn't let culture dictate his masculinity. He can be strong, smart, and artistic. Both and, not either or. Or how about this? I remember being 15 and being asked by a boy I liked at the time if I made decisions with my head or my heart. Even back then, I thought that was a weird question. What most people mean by that is, do you make rational decisions based solely on logic? Or do you make emotional decisions based on how you feel? Even to my teenage self, it seemed ridiculous that I would have to pick one or the other. I have both a brain and a heart. Most people who know me would tell you that I am a pretty rational person, very practical, down to earth, a bottom line kind of girl, a logical decision maker. Those same people would also tell you that I am a person who feels things very deeply. On a scale of 1 to 10, if I am feeling more than a 7 of any emotion, it is my body's natural response to cry about it. Happy, mad, sad, tired, confused, overwhelmed, etc., etc. This used to bother me, but I'm learning to embrace it as an important part of who I am. I'm an emotional, empathetic, passionate person. Both my logical brain and my deep feeling heart exist within me and make me who I am. Both are very strong, and both provide me with crucial information that helps me to be consistent with who I want to be. And while certain situations may call for more of my head or my heart, there is no perfect formula or flowchart that can help me precisely determine when to use each one. So I want to consult both every time and then choose the wise thing to do from there. I choose both and, not either or. So, when I think about myself, my students, my friends, I think about what it could be like if we didn't have to worry about either or when it came to our identity. There are so many of these false dichotomies in our culture where society implies, well, if you're not this, then you must be that. Emotional or logical, smart or stupid, brave or afraid, strong or weak, a lover or a fighter. And yet, we're both. The grand majority of us have the capacity to do all of those things and more. And yet we so often forget that, or we don't want to be reminded. And so when we label ourselves or other people as one or the other, there is often this stigma and shame that comes with that. Unfortunately, when we do that, we are missing out on the beautiful depth and complexity that is our humanity. One of my favorite things about my job is when I get to help students wrestle with their story and their identity, where it has changed them for the better and where it has hurt them. I get to help them embrace their potential and realize their limitations. This is crucial because then they can begin to explore where they make the world a better place and where they need to ask for help. The reason that I care about this so much is that when I was in college, someone did this for me. He was my resident director. He created a crucial both and experience for me. You see, when I was in college, I was going through a really messy season in my personal life with a lot of hard things going on. And he created a safe space for me to be a mess, to say what I needed to say and feel what I needed to feel. And yet he saw my potential and the leader that I could be. And so even though he saw my brokenness and sat with me in it, he entrusted me with responsibility, he affirmed my strengths, and he gave me the chance to grow. Not only did he allow me to be a student leader, but he even suggested that I could do residence life as a career. His ability to let me be both a mess and a leader, changed the entire trajectory of my post-college life. I've now spent the majority of my 20s trying to be a leader like that, one that honors the legacy he taught me. So, how do I intentionally do that? Well, there's no perfect way, but there's a lot of goodness in the world that helps me move towards that. Singer and songwriter India Ari sings a song called Better People, and in it she says, "Listen to Mahatma Gandhi's words. Be the change you want to see in the world. Start with yourself, and healing will multiply." So, as I pursue holistic growth and healing in my own life, I'm able to pass that goodness on to others. So if I want my students to experience the freedom of that both and reality, then I need to be looking for ways to live that out. So I'm constantly reading or watching TED Talks. I try to spend time with people I think are wise and can teach me something, or with people that are different from me and can give me a new perspective. I want to pursue and be filled up with things that are good and true and remind me that I am a both and person. And I want to avoid things that bring me shame and reinforce those either or lies. Now, as I was talking to my family about presenting here today, I was introduced to an interesting bit of information. There is a term called antinomy that exists within logic and epistemology, particularly in the philosophy of Immanuel Kant. Antinomy refers to a real or apparent mutual incompatibility of two laws. So, two laws, two truths, two concepts that are paired together that seem contradictory to one another, and yet both are true of reality and how humans experience the world. I would say that both truths bring a deeper and more complete understanding, and that understanding is stronger when those things are paired together than when they're separated. I would venture to say that could be true about more than just philosophy, but we'll come back to that in a little bit. One of my favorite authors of all time, Dr. Brene Brown, addresses a similar thought in her newest book, Rising Strong, by saying, "I am slowly learning to straddle the tension that comes with understanding that I am tough and tender, brave and afraid, strong and struggling. All of these things, all of the time. I'm working on letting go of having to be one or the other. The roles in my life all require me to bring my whole self to the table." I love that. It is highlighted and quadruple starred in my book because she is naming a truth that I've known about myself on some level for a very long time, but I didn't think people around me would get it. And then I realized I'm not alone. So whether I'm reading it in a book or hearing it in conversation, truth like that feeds my soul because it reminds me that I get to be both, and that one option does not mean success and the other means failure. Both are innately true to being human, and I'm so thankful for that. So I think back to my senior year of college when I had the opportunity to stand in front of my student body and share about my journey through college and how I had grown, even though it had been a rough couple of years. And when I intentionally chose to be authentic and transparent so that the audience could see emotion on my face and hear it in my voice, And then I find out after I get done talking that apparently a guy I knew back then told a friend of mine, "I can't believe she got so emotional. This is why we shouldn't let women speak in these types of situations." I get to say today, watch me. Watch me. Watch me be emotional and logical. Watch me be a crier and a great public speaker. Watch me be smart and strong. Watch me be the fullness of who I was meant to be. Watch me. The last example I want to share with you about how I'm implementing both and into my life is this. 33 days ago, I got a tattoo. And while that may seem like a random example, I promise you I've been thinking about it for over a year. It's 3 sets of 2 words. Wounded healer, hope carrier, love warrior. Now, these word pairings may not seem like they automatically go together or that they even contradict one another. An example of antinomy. But they were chosen on purpose because they are a part of how I see myself, how I want to interact with other people, how I want to impact the world, how I want to be a part of something great. The first phrase, wounded healer, comes from a book by Henry Nouwen called The Wounded Healer. All of us in our lives have been wounded. It is impossible to go through life without it happening. And sometimes that wounding is so deep, it feels like it defines us. And yet, healing is possible. The things that have been the most excruciatingly painful in my life have been and are being redeemed into something good. And as I work through and own my own story, I am able to love other people better because I can help them know that they aren't alone. That is one of the greatest things I've ever done and am committed to doing for the rest of my days. The next phrase, hope carrier, is a phrase I got from a student that I mentored and now call friend. Now, I am not a naturally optimistic person. Some people assume that means I'm a pessimist. And while I may have more naturally occurring pessimistic tendencies, once again, I don't have to be one or the other. I choose another option outside that false dichotomy. I am a realist who has perpetual hope woven into her heart. Some people, when they hear the word hope, think of it as this precious, fluffy, cotton candy word that's full of sunshine and smiles. And while hope has positive qualities associated with it, hope for me has grit. It's tenacious. To do the hard, heavy work of holding on to hope in the midst of this messy, painful world is significant. For me, hope has goodness and difficulty wrapped up together. To be a hope carrier is to see our complicated world as it really is, but to be willing to fight for hope and love when people are in crisis and they cannot believe those things for themselves. You stand in the gap and you fight with them until they're strong enough to stand on their own. As a resident director, I've had the privilege of doing that for so many incredible students, just like my loved ones have done for me, even if they wouldn't have called it that at the time. The last phrase, love warrior, comes from another favorite author of mine, Glennon Doyle Melton. Love warrior is the name of her newest book. When I saw those 2 words, love warrior, put right next to each other, I knew that had been true about me my whole life, that I was a lover and a fighter. A deep, feeling, empathetic, compassionate warrior who is strong and loyal, a fierce protector, and an advocate against injustice. So, that's how both and is showing up in my life. Maybe you're wondering how both and applies to you. Well, the good news is you already are both and maybe just don't know how yet. So let me ask you a couple questions. What antinomies are true of you? What both and phrases are being woven into your being? Where can you disprove these false either-or constructs in order to liberate the fullness of who you are? Look at the expectations you have for yourself. Are they even realistic? Are you letting other people make decisions about your identity? Is shame motivating your choices? Do you feel like you're hiding? When do you get the most upset with yourself? Ask yourself why that is. Give yourself the gift of time and effort through self-reflection and counsel in order to permit the unleashing of your full and complete identity. So what have I learned by asking these questions? Who am I? I am a lover and a fighter. I am smart, but I still need to keep learning. I'm competent and hardworking, but I still need to ask for help sometimes. I'm tender and tough. I use my head and my heart. I'm a little bit Democrat, a little bit Republican, and a little bit something else too. I'm a Christian and a feminist. I'm a Christian who loves the LGBTQ people in my life, and I am fighting for healing and reconciliation and bridge building between those two communities. I'm afraid, but I can lean into pain and tension and do hard, important things anyways. I'm wounded, but I'm healing, and I get to help others do the same. I'm both and, not either or. And all of those things are just a piece of the beautiful complexity that is Nicole Christine Clifton. And I can be those things no matter what my job title is or what the future holds for me. Wounded healer, hope carrier, love warrior. That is who I am and how I am a part of something great, something that matters in this world. Thank you.